The Essendon coaching circus, and it probably is a bit of a circus at the moment, continues, but great news for the club during the week with Nate Caddy, a 3-year extension he signed, already contracted for another 2 seasons, so now taken through until 2031. That has to be a massive fill-up for a club that still seems to be under siege.
Massive fill-up, because hasn't been much good news around Essendon, so that's really good news. I must say, you think to yourself, Caro, okay, he's already contracted for another couple of years and he's decided now to extend it another 3. He would have to have some thinking. They would have had to share with him, and I'm talking Andrew Welsh down, what are we thinking about our next coach and who that might be? You would have thought, rather, to actually sign an extension now for 5 years, you would have thought Nate Caddy and his team would want to know exactly what is the thinking on the new coach and who might be the new coach, rather than just say, no, we'll tell you, we don't know. I reckon if the answer is we don't know, we've got no idea, why would Nate Caddy sign now rather than wait to the new coach to be appointed and then sign?
I think these talks have been going on for a while. I think they started under Brad Scott. Brad Scott was always of the view, I think he said publicly, that this is a boy who just loves the Essendon Football Club. Yes, incredibly frustrated with losing, but incredibly committed to Essendon.
Incredible faith in the club. Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah.
Andrew Marr, I don't know what truth there is in this, reported, I think yesterday, that Nate Caddy's father had revealed at some function in recent days that his son had extended his contract with the Essendon Footy Club and that he expected James Hird to be his coach for at least 2 or 3 years. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. I still would be amazed if Essendon went down the James Hird route. I don't expect them to do that, but I've been wrong before, Bruce. That was reported, as I said. Would Nate Caddy's father know? Would he have been told that we want John Longmire? I've got no idea, but yes, you would think there would have been some. For those
of us who are just looking at it from the outside and haven't got any inside knowledge, Beaver, would you think there's more? I would have thought there's more chance that James Hird will get the job now than there was a month ago.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Yeah,
definitely.
Just the look and the build from the outside.
I'd even say just in the last week to 10 days.
Then, yeah.
Why? Because Matthew Lloyd's jumped on board?
Oh, no, a combination of that, a little bit of that. The fact that Simon Goodwin and Nathan Buckley declined to be, don't want to be part of the process.
Well, that's for the same reason that Ken Hinckley said he wouldn't be part of a process until they made a call on James Hird or not.
Yeah, so the field's narrowing. One name, the name Mark McVeigh hasn't popped up probably as often
on the list
as I would have thought, given, I hate this phrase, the boxes that he ticks.
Yeah.
But it's... Are you starting to turn, Caro, in terms of... No, you still think no chance?
No. I mean, yes, I believe no chance. I do think that big names like Hinckley and Longmire, and I'm not surprised by Simon Goodwin, by the way. Now, he's moved to Sydney for personal reasons. He's loving working for the Swans.
Were you surprised by Bucks?
No. He wants Tasmania, I think. I know he said he would, initially he said he might look elsewhere. I doubt that Carlton is going to be interested in Nathan Buckley, given that Graham Wright is running that situation, and he parted ways with Bucks at Collingwood. Not that he didn't rate him, but I don't think he'd be going back to Nathan Buckley. I do think that a lot of people like Hinckley have said Essendon need to decide what they want before we have any interest in talking to them. I think that's Longmire's view as well, but I still believe that someone who hasn't worked in the system for 12 to 13 years, and Lee referred to it last week as a handbrake.
Yeah, it's a disadvantage. That's clearly a disadvantage, but it's not the be-all and end-all. I mean, I'm starting just to observe it as if the Essendon people might say, as long as we think he can be a competent coach, he's the person who might be able to unite our club. And that's an enormous factor in their decision making.
I don't see him as a uniting figure at all.
Well, he's the prodigal son. I mean, there might be half the Essendon full base that don't want him, but there's certainly a lot do, I reckon. But it's more the point. But they've got to actually say, yeah, he's a competent coach. You can't say he's a hopeless coach, but he'll unite the club. But if we think he's a competent coach, then he might unite the club. That narrative, I think, is a really powerful one. And that's what the decision makers have to weigh up, exactly that.
So why is he a competent coach? What have we seen?
I don't know whether he's a competent coach, but the people at Essendon at least observed him in the coaching chair a generation ago. No, it was a long time ago. So they observed him. Some of the people around Essendon anyway. There's some new... Andrew Welsh was probably in some way involved. So they've seen him in the senior coaching position, a long time ago.
Is there the lure as well of the potential dream team in inverts that he could surround himself with if he does get the job?
I think there's big money supporters of the club who are fanatical and would throw big money into Essendon if James Hird came on board. But so in his first or second year did they make finals? I think they lost a final. Then they made finals the year of the drug scandal, but of course were banned from playing finals. I mean, Lee, I've not seen enough to say James Hird is a competent coach.
I'm not. I haven't either. All I'm saying is the people, though, behind the scenes at Essendon, some of them have been around Essendon for a long time. So they may have formed a view that no, he's a competent coach. He's an intelligent man. He's a competent coach. So therefore
But he hasn't coached for 13 years. I mean, he was an assistant coach for a few months at GWS.
Well, that's true. But the assistant coaches who have never coached, never.
Well, they've been assistant coaches. They've worked in the system.
They've never coached a senior game. If you've coached a senior game, that gives you. That's why Josh Fraser should have elevated himself in anything to do with Carlton, because he's now coached.
Agree.
6 or 7, 7 games.
I say again, you've got John Longmire, for example, who I think missed finals twice in all his years at Sydney.
But if you're talking if or but, okay, John Longmire or James Hird, well, John Longmire is more a proven coach, absolutely. But all I'm saying is that if you've got a competent coach who can unite a club that needs to be united more so than it maybe is, that's a very powerful narrative.
Let's take a couple of calls on the Nick Theodosi Prestige Car open line, 20 past midday on the White Glove Mover clock, 133 693 if you want to be a part of the conversation. Today's best caller, a $100 gift card, thanks to Harvey Norman. Harvey Norman's super deals on now will be coming your way. Ian, kick us off on this Saturday afternoon of round 18. Welcome to 3AW Footy.
Thank you for putting me on. I spoke to the person who answered the phone to say I want to thank Caroline Wilson for being the sole media person that understands that appointing James Hird would be a massive mistake. Now, I don't know why none of the media people in Melbourne, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them, haven't read Chip Legrand's book. If you read Chip Legrand's book, Straight Dope, you could never ever support James Hird being appointing coach. Thank you, Carolyn. You're a million times correct on this, and every other media journo is exposed for being sucked into the Kevin Sheedy, Paul Little, Eddie Maguire scam and PR shakedown that's a disgrace.
Strong start.
This is a strong start.
Well, Matthew Lloyd, who I have huge amount of respect for, seems to think now that Essendon has sunk so low that only Hird is the answer. Now, I just don't understand that thinking. The club I think they sunk lower in 2013, personally, and 2014 and 15. But he's saying they've never been lower, so they need James Hird. Now, I don't understand the logic in that. Surely you need a highly professional, competent team, a proven coach, dare I say a premiership coach, who might be able to come in and rebuild this footy club. I'll leave it at that.
Ian, thanks.
And I'm not alone, by the way. Thank you, Ian, but many agree with me.
Ian, thanks for your call. We might go to line 4, Marie, before we get to Robert. Good afternoon, Marie.
Oh, good afternoon, panel. I'm a passionate Collingwood supporter, and I'm just getting sick and tired of listening to all this conversation and discussion on James Hird being the coach at Essendon. Why don't they just announce it and get it over and done with and put everyone out of their misery? I don't understand it.
You think it's preordained, Marie? You think they've already decided?
Oh, of course they have. I don't understand it. He's going to be coached. Let's move on. Let's talk about Collingwood.
I know it was COVID times. I'm trying to think back, and it is only, 5 years ago. Yeah. The second half of the season when Nathan Buckley was stepped away from Collingwood coaching, and Robert Harvey was interim coach. Was there all this hullabaloo around who was such a massive job being the Magpies senior coach? I can't remember there being this much discussion about who's going to be the next Collingwood
Well, it was interesting
as there is now with the Bombers.
Well, if you remember, there was also a political upheaval at board level. Eddie had gone and Jeff Brown was trying to take over as chairman, which took a long time, but he ultimately succeeded. In the meantime, Graham Wright went to Sam Mitchell. Hawthorn jumped and they did the deal with Clarko and Sam Mitchell that fell apart. Sam Mitchell became coach the following year. And Eddie, who I was working with at the time on Footy Classified, was absolutely adamant that had he still been in charge, he would have had a crack at names like Clarkson and Hardwick. But Graham Wright, who was running the process at the time, disagreed, and he made a play after he couldn't get Sam Mitchell. He went down to a process. I think it came down to Kingsley and McRae, I reckon, and he chose McRae.
And that's right. It was almost diluted by the presidential debate as much as the coaching debate,
wasn't that the first decision the Essendon people had to make is, do we go and headhunt someone? Like John Longmire, you go and headhunt.
Exactly.
You don't ask him to get into process. You say, we know what his coaching credentials are all about. We want to try and get him, right? But you feel like because they've started to think about talking to assistant coaches, they must have given away the idea of headhunting.
I'm not sure. I would love to know, do they want a proven coach? Do they want James Hird, Dean Solomon type vibe? Or do they want a senior assistant a la
Carlton seem to be going that direction, yeah.
Thanks, Marie. Eugene, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, gents. Look, I was at the club from 1990 right through till 2007 whilst in Kevin's era, and James Hird was one of our top players, and I'm very much in favour of James having a go. I think had people left Kevin as a director of football at the time that he got the bullet, I don't think any of this would have happened. Now, there are a number of issues, and whilst Kevin was on the board, obviously he had to retire or resign because it was sort of the young versus the old. And the demise of the club has come about because we've lost our culture. We've had people coming in from other teams who I don't think were as competent or nowhere near the level of our mate James Hird. Secondly, the guy that just rang and said, look, there was such and such written about James Hird, read his book, etc., etc. Nothing's been proven.
Okay, well, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but thank you for your call. Can I just reflect on what the Geelong coach, Chris Scott, had to say about this issue the other day?
But I suspect he decided a while ago that, yes, I'd like the chance to be a senior coach again. And that only really happens if you get back into an apprenticeship role and get up to speed with the modern game. It doesn't matter who you are. Even to an extent, every now and again, I'm kind of a bit starstruck with Bucks walking around. But he hasn't used that gravitas to cut corners on the work he's had to do.
The key 5 words were "doesn't matter who you are." Insert James Hird. And
invoking the Nathan Buckley example, who has put his head down, shown absolutely no ego at all, and gone back into a senior assistant role.